Hey guys, welcome to Chasing Gains Radio, episode 17. Today we've got an amazing guest in Alex Thomas. Alex is the founder of Metabolic Health Systems, which is a company that actually helps personal trainers, coaches be certified and covered by insurance to write diets for athletic populations, which is something that's quite lacking. So we actually go into all the detail about what is covered under your insurance, what is not covered under your insurance, what is your scope of practice, what does that mean, why it's important to actually have a screen for your clients, and all the benefits of that. It's a great podcast. We're going to be getting into a lot more podcasts like this, specific for coaches to be able to help increase the standards within the fitness industry. So kind of like raising that bar. So let's get into the podcast. Chasing Gains Radio, the insatiable quest for constant progression. Chasing is the act of pursuing. Gains is the result or positive outcome. Chasing Gains Radio. Here's your host, Cody McAuliffe. Hey guys, welcome to Chasing Gains Radio. Today we've got an absolutely amazing guest in Alex Thomas. He runs his own facility in Queensland here in Brisbane, and he's also the creator of Metabolic Health Systems, which we're going to be talking about today and how that's going to be making a massive difference on the fitness industry. So welcome, Alex.
Thanks, Cody. Appreciate it, man.
Awesome. So I'll just get you to give us a bit of a background on how you got into the fitness industry and your kind of experience within it.
Okay, so this is my 11th year in the industry now. I've been pretty active in performance sports as a junior, coming through school and all that stuff for a very long time, and started working in gyms upon graduating high school. So I became a personal trainer. Basically, as soon as I graduated, I did the diploma in fitness through like grade 12. They had an option that we could do that back in the day if you did HP in physical recreation. So I came out as a certified trainer. Didn't really know too much. Thought I knew everything because I was, playing state level sports and stuff. Like the majority of people, and learned a lot of lessons as I was coming through. I studied in exercise and movement sciences, nutrition, dietetics. Did a bit of law at uni. Potted around for a number of years, and as I was going through the health sciences here, one of the things that I came to learn was it was very much health and chronic disease focused, especially when I was going through. So the options were very limited in terms of the, occupation you could choose upon graduation. So for me, it was I came to a point where I had basically chose to either work out of a hospital upon graduation or work in the industry and continue working as a personal trainer. So I chose to do that because I wanted to be working with people who wanted to work on optimizing their health and fitness through exercise and exercise-related outcomes, as opposed to treating clients who, at the time, again, and this is my own bias, based on what I was exposed to, were, like lap band patients and things like that. That wasn't something that necessarily appealed to me. So that's, I guess, how I came to be in the industry and started setting up Enhance HQ, which is my company, and facility there, which is a training and allied health center. So we've got coaches and sports nutritionists, as well as like allied health practitioners, so ex-physers, manual therapists, dietitians, access to doctors, all that kind of stuff. As I was setting that up, I was looking into having the coaches qualified in sports nutrition, because a number of places within Australia were offering that as a service through their coaches. And, in Australia, a lot of coaches, especially in like the bodybuilding scene and all that kind of stuff, were giving out meal plans. So it was the norm. But the moment I put my name on, I guess, the lease and the company and assumed all the responsibility for having people under me, I very much wanted to legitimize the process and make sure that myself and everyone else were covered. Because as it turns out, you can be sued up to, I think it's a back date of 4 or 5 years. So trainers out there and stuff, or facility owners, keep your insurance for another 4 to 5 years after you finish, if you don't know that. And that's for your professional indemnity. And all the while, previously I was covered a lot of for the stuff that I was doing under my student insurance through uni. So the moment I stopped and went down this path, I had to go through a legitimate means. And that's where we really came to, I guess, the crossroads of where sports nutrition currently lies in the country, and that's that an ombudsman at the time was coming out. Now, this is a number of years ago, and that was governing health and fitness, because there were things from midwives, saying have a home birth or a water birth, it's better for your baby, and not having emergency medical equipment available, and there being, birthing deaths as a result. Chiropractors saying they were going to cure cancer, and PTs giving out meal plans to people who shouldn't have been and weren't suitable for that type of a meal plan, who weren't educated in the area, and causing significant detriment to their clients' health, and doing so ignorantly. And I guess I'll just say as well that this is very much an Australian insurance regulatory thing, and it's just very much relevant to our country's insurance stuff. It might be similar in other countries, and this might be helpful to some other people, but if not, it's very much in the context of our country. And so what happened was this ombudsman was coming out, and there was no way that the main governing body was actually recognising and ensuring nutrition for personal trainers in the country, or any form of coach, unless you were a dietitian. And we had like short courses, I guess that we call them, for like CEC points that exist. So, that stands for continued education. And that's, they were there, and people thought that if they were doing that, they were covered. And as it turned out, the insurance companies weren't recognising them. And there was a couple of other avenues that existed for what, as it turned out when I was looking into it further, were actually like apparent insurance coverages, but didn't actually stand up and have any legs to them in order to make sure that people were actually covered. And there were a couple of things that we ran into and learned about in the process of going through all of this. So what I realized was that nothing existed, and we had to create something. So started working with underwriting companies and insurance brokers and companies to find out what needed to be done in order to get this recognized, so that way we could be providing this, and then where the gaps were in the industry at the moment that were causing detriment to people's health and causing issues for the insurance companies, and how we could really make a difference. And so what came out basically was that the way that the main governing body in Australia, which is Fitness Australia, they don't insure for strength training and powerlifting activities. And one of the, I guess, bodies involved saying, hey, yep, we'll give you insurance and stuff, very much speaks about this adamantly, in terms of it not being a good comprehensive cover. And the way that this actually happened, 10, 15 years ago, when it was removed from the cover, those activities were removed from the cover, that person involved in that body was actually prescribing exercises that hadn't been, I guess, pre-screened and pre-qualified to be suitable for a client, and hadn't performed a thorough assessment on the client, who actually had, from what I believe to be a pre-existing shoulder condition. They were getting them to do ridiculously heavy supramaximal loads for overhead shoulder work, and subsequently, caused significant damage that resulted in a lawsuit and millions of dollars worth of payouts. And I think 5+ operations later for the person to just be able to go to 90 degrees and only work within that range and not do anything overhead, for the rest of their life. And what the underwriting and insurance companies came back and said was, we're no longer covering that activity. The governing body then pulled that as a result, because they are the biggest in the country at the moment and can't assume that type of risk or responsibility. Subsequently, that person and entity was no longer being covered, so they had to go out and get their own. And one of the other services they offered was sports nutrition. They don't believe in pre-screening whatsoever. And the essence of, as it turns out, and I guess it makes sense when you hear it out loud and think about it, is the essence of being covered in service provision for anything for someone's health or fitness means that you have a duty of care that's assumed. You have assumed duty of care, and you must exercise that duty of care in pre-screening the client that you're about to be working on, or prospect, or whatever it is, person, whoever it is, pre-screening them for that activity that you're about to take them through. So whether it be nutrition or exercise, you have to exercise a pre-screen and pre-qualification on them to see if they are suitable for that activity. And that's what came back to us. So basically our answer for it was I had to create a screen at the time. So one of my colleagues who was a practicing dietitian at the time and is now a doctor of dietetics, Dr. Cam McDonald, who specialises in epigenetics and chronic positive outcomes in chronic disease populations. And I got together and co-wrote this screen. I'll provide a link for his stuff for Cody. You'll pop it up at the end or something like that. If anyone wants to look at the work and stuff, it's pretty cool, the stuff that they're doing. And he and I co-authored this screen to identify the risks associated with sports nutritional programming for the general population to come into. Okay, so like what are the associated risks and the medical risks and the lifestyle risks that are associated that can that are flags and a nutritional program or a supplement program could exacerbate with someone if someone was ignorantly performing that service and not screening for it. A perfect example of this is someone with heart disease or cholesterol issues. They're on certain medications and they go into a supplement store and they say they want to lose weight, and the person sells them a really strong thermogenic over the counter with a ton of caffeine, some synephrine, and some other compounds that can affect that in not the best way. And there's been some cases of people with history of cardiac disease passing away and having cardiac arrest from taking caffeine and stuff, and it's not necessarily the fact that they have that, but obviously they're at higher risk for it. And a lot of the data that we're seeing with supplements and certain supplements in particular is that things like caffeine, for instance, people have positive health effects and then also negative health effects. And there's a specific gene that has been found to be associated with that. So if you have the dominant of that gene, then you're all good and you get the positive performance effects and positive health effects. And if you're the recessive, which is, just over 30% of the population, then you actually get the negative health implications from that, and they've actually been seen to have their performance decrease. So things like that in conjunction with certain medications can then be a bad combination depending. So this is why we screen effectively to make sure that that's okay. Things like putting a client on a high carbohydrate or a high sugar-based diet for nutrient timing or something like that, and it's a female client who has a history of polycystic ovarian syndrome or endometriosis, and they may not metabolize carbohydrates the right way because of this health condition that they're currently dealing with. Are considerations that need to be looked into and addressed and respected. And so that's what the screen is about. The insurers came back to us and said, that's what we are interested in covering. If you have that, then we will recognise it. And the qualification that I had at the time was a SNS certificate, so a sports nutrition specialist certificate through the International Society of Sports Nutrition, which is the ISSN. And now I'm fortunate enough to call myself the Australian national brand ambassador of theirs and have their highest qualification, which is the CISSN, and affiliate with them regularly, go out to the conferences and look at all the data and all the cool information that's being brought together. And basically, for anyone who doesn't know of the ISSN, they're basically the biggest organisation and body for all the information in sports nutrition to come together internationally and share it. And it's awesome, like things that, how much it's grown in the last few years just based on what Jose, the CEO, has been telling me and where they've come from is fantastic. And it's just a place where data and information is collected, reviewed, audited, everyone has an open mind, and, position stands do change based on the data. And it's just a place where great minds come together and share information. So it's awesome like that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it, man.
Yeah, cool.
That's a big mouthful.
In terms of, I guess, the ISSN, how is that different from other governing bodies and the more focus on evidence-based practices over more unproven techniques, I guess.
Like bro science and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to say bro science, but yeah.
Yeah, the bro science. So yeah, bro science is a funny word. Hey, it's like a bit of an umbrella term, I guess. But with the ISSN and the certification, and I guess the conceptually what it stands for as far as my interpretation of it is, it's just the collaboration and collection of information. Unbiased interpretation of the information and data, and then suggestions put forward to a more optimal outcome on a subject for that. So really just an evidence-based approach based on the current evidence that we have on a certain subject matter. So that being sports nutrition is the current position stands based on the evidence we have collectively in the areas of sports nutrition.
Yeah.
So the ISSN and what it teaches and stands for as the body that it is really just an open-minded approach to sports nutrition in an evidence-based manner, and doing so without, I guess, what it does is enables coaches and sports nutritionists and dietitians to come together with their information, share it, have it reviewed, and then have that review allow them to apply that information in the most effective manner at that point in time. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily always right. It just means that you're operating with the most optimal information that you have at the time, with the best of intentions at the time for clients. When you compare that to, I guess, certain other practices, the bro sciences or whatever people call them, or what you refer to, whatever you want to be referred to, that I guess really isn't evidence-based practice, is, things more along the line of like just rigid, strict approaches that don't allow flexibility. And I guess where that tends to fall short in private practice or working with clientele is that it doesn't allow flexibility for lifestyles. So if it has to be this certain way, then it doesn't allow for changes dependent on that person's lifestyle, and then something that could be really effective for one person because their lifestyle allows for it may be extremely ineffective for another person and stressful for another person and a negative experience for them. So evidence-based practice allows you to take the information and apply it to a lifestyle in a suitable manner that's going to be well executed as well. And with the metabolic health courses that we teach and we go through, and the certification that we do for coaches, is we take the current information and the current position stands on the evidence and the subject matter, and then teach people the content, but then teach them how to practically apply it in context and in certain scenarios. Okay, so we've had case studies in which we start teaching that, and we teach the coaches then how to apply that information in a way where it's in a practical setting, but they can get the most out of that practical setting. I guess the best way I can describe that is with a client who comes with a certain condition and their goal might be, to lose 12 kilos of body fat over, they might have a preconceived notion of, say, over an 8-week period or something like that. And, we talk about the considerations in terms of reframing expectations, frequency of catch-up, depending on what their eating history's been like. So that way you can coach them and support them if they need that, or if their, eating history's been really good and they can do that stuff with on their own really well, then you can then program that and allow an appointment frequency for that and certain information in that context that's going to allow them to be the most successful, especially when they're not wanting to be, spoon-fed everything and they just want to go out on their own and do it. So it just allows us to educate people on how to apply that to the certain client context in the most effective manner with the best information that we have at the point in time. Yeah,
awesome. And then in terms of, I guess you kind of touched on before, the limitations of current personal trainers. So what are the exclusions that like a lot of the trainers might not necessarily know about? So you mentioned like powerlifting and stuff like that in terms of the coverage that the majority of insurances, so like Guild and Marsh are the two primary ones in line
Yeah.
with Fitness Australia. What are the exclusions of those?
So for all personal trainers, and I think they call them, like, they refer to them as fitness professionals through those companies. The limitations are really, like you said, they don't have any strength training, powerlifting. I think they say no bodybuilding anymore as well.
Yep.
And in terms of nutrition, all they can talk about is reinforce the current nutritional guides, and that's a document that's provided to them through the government and the Dietitians Association of Australia, and that's all they can do. They can talk about that. They cannot put anything on paper. They can't coach a client on a specific. They can't recommend a supplement. They can't coach a client on anything beyond the portion sizes recommended in that. So, fruit serving sizes, vegetable serving sizes, all that kind of stuff. There's no real personalization to it. It's very just generic. Okay, so you're looking at, have you had your portions of meat today? Have you had your portions of vegetables today? That's the extent of it. Talking about, have you had your cup of oats, or have you had your protein powder? Did you take have a shot of coffee, or have your thermogenic pills or carnitine or whatever it is that you like to recommend for your clients? Doesn't exist. The moment you start talking about that stuff, you're beyond just scope of practice for what you're insured for. And if they have any record of that and it does have a detrimental effect for them, then you're liable for up to a 5-year period from beyond that point. So it's really limited for what you can offer. It's crazy, like fitness professionals or like trainers, become certified to be able to help clients and in the most effective way as possible. We're here to serve. We're service providers and we're here to serve people. We want to help people, and we're effectively extremely limited with what we can do within those insurance parameters, and obviously educational parameters, because they're not educated on these things. The majority of Certificate 3 and 4 content is geared around how to effectively train the general population to a certain level of fitness and health, which is great. But beyond that, then is a whole different realm. If we're talking about sports performance or body composition optimization, or really just anything like working with elderly populations, movement correction, all that kind of stuff, that's where further education is required. Metabolic health stuff, we go into the sports nutrition component of it, and we're the only educational provider that provides a foundational learning platform in sports nutrition in the country at the moment that isn't a postgraduate degree. So the only other thing that exists at the moment is through the Australian Institute of Sport for the Sports Dietitian Accreditation, so the SDA, and that's for dietitians who have completed their Masters in Dietetics, I believe, and have been practicing for over a year, or have had like a letter of recommendation or something like that. So Hayley Christensen, who's the specialist sports dietitian who we work with, who specialises in metabolism and body composition, and is one of the only in the country who does so, she's been granted early access to that because that's her specialty, and she's been practicing and logged all these hours through us in this particular field to be able to go and do that. But other than that, nothing exists. There's like some RTOs have like diplomas in nutrition and dietetics or something they call them, or nutrition, and it says in brackets non-clinical. I think they range from like $9,000 online to $13,000 or something like that, like a ridiculous amount, and they don't give you scope of practice. It's not in a sports nutritional setting. It's how, from what I understand, it's like how to get someone healthily eating without being covered to be working with them on their health, if that makes sense. Like sports nutrition on its own, while without assessing and screening, can be potentially detrimental to a client if information is ignorantly applied. It's pretty simple once that's been cleared. So the screen from our end basically exists to flag and identify the risks, and then we have the dietitian and doctor network to be able to refer to when they are flagged. Yeah. And then these specialists and professionals then work with the sports nutritionists and coaches on the outcomes for the client. They don't take the clients or anything like that. Yeah. They see them at a frequency that's comfortable for the client, and then work in conjunction with the coach who sees the client far more frequently on what outcomes they want for the client, and then work with them as a collaboration as opposed to against them. At the moment, it's kind of crazy in the industry. Dietitians, from what I believe, are really discouraged, and it might be. I might be correct in saying this. I think they're told not to post anything online really about like before and afters and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they really can't do promotion. So a lot of people, like the general public and general population, if they're on social media, which the majority of people are nowadays, especially in Australia, and they're looking, for a health professional or anything like that, they're following someone, it's a personal trainer or a coach.
Yeah.
So, the screen exists to flag, refer if an issue does exist, and then have the professionals and specialists working with the coaches to help optimize the client's outcomes from there. And that makes it really easy to cover sports nutrition. But coming back to those diplomas in like health nutrition and stuff, when they're not getting scoped, that's kind of a bit of a hairy area from what I understand, because you look at the insurance policies of the doctors and the specialists that specialize in health outcomes, and they're far more expensive. They're in the thousands of dollars annually for these people. So, I don't know enough about them, but working like in an area that's health but not giving them full health scope, it's quite expensive for something that's not going to necessarily have the best outcome for a client seeing a coach or a trainer in that context for a body composition or performance outcome. Yeah.
I think that's the big difference. It's more about the majority of these nutrition courses that are out there are based on health, not changes in body composition. That's the key difference between working towards like an athletic or body composition outcome that the ISSN does as compared to everyone else who's just working on health. Because as soon as you start to go in towards more body composition specific training, there's obviously higher risks, and it's not necessarily health based. So obviously you want to maintain the potential health of the client as much as possible, but if you're putting them in a calorie deficit to be able to get their body fat down, then there's going to be some side effects if done incorrectly and in an extreme measure, which is what the majority of personal trainers currently do, based on the fact that their scope is only to be able to say, all right, well, you've got to get your vegetables in, you've got to get your water, and you've got to have protein. But there's no link between that and what they can actually prescribe in terms of getting their clients results. So they just go to an extreme to get the result, whether it's just going on an extremely low-calorie diet to be able to get them from, all right, well, they're paying me to help them lose weight. I need to get them to lose weight. It doesn't matter how we do it. We're going to smash them with training. We're going to drop their calories right down, and we're going to go aggressive so that they get results. However, the long-term implications in terms of their health are not even thought about. It doesn't even come into the trainer's mind that that's actually going to be an issue down the track, because they don't have the knowledge or the skill set to be able to, understand that could be an issue, or really even know about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so funny. Hey, like, that's really poignant, because it's funny because, like, I just on social media in the last week with we're coming into season B comps in Australia at the moment, and you see these people. Everyone's trying to promote themselves on social media, and it's one of these things where, like, currently we've got 70,000 registered exercise professionals in the country, and I would say maybe like we'd be lucky if 2,000 were actually educated and registered and recognised insured sports nutritionists in some capacity. We've put through Metabolic Health in the last just over 2 years, we've put through I think just over 100 certified people. So that's what we've contributed. Like, our goal, just to be upfront, is to have 20,000 in the next 5 years certified, registered and insured, and screening and, catching these health conditions before something goes wrong. And so that way the client can get results, but also isn't then being made worse, or, nothing bad's happening to them. So just this year alone, we've registered and flagged, I think, just over 300 high-risk clients that wouldn't have otherwise been identified and then referred off, and they've all had positive body composition outcomes and health outcomes as well, because they've been able to be referred to the relevant specialist and then work in conjunction with the coach on the best outcome.
Yeah.
But that aside, the stuff that I'm seeing, there's people talking about, like, metabolic damage. It's a real trendy word since Lane put his videos out there, and he put them out there with the best of intentions. And some of the, authority figures in the industry hate it, and they don't really like it. So they call it metabolic suppression or metabolic downregulation. They say this thing exists. Some people say it's it doesn't exist, or it's not irreversible, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just crazy, like the amount of opinionated stuff that's getting out there. If we go back to like an evidence-based approach, there is now a medical condition that has been recognised, and it's not called metabolic damage. And I don't think it ever will be called that, but it's called RED-S, which stands for Relative Energy Deficit in Sport. Okay, and basically, in a nutshell, it's metabolic damage without calling it metabolic damage. Okay, it talks about the body's physiological functions being impaired as a result of being in either an overtraining environment and creating too much of a deficit through activity or through food. Now, they say in sport and refer to an activity, but it can also be done through a lack of intake as well. So it's crazy. People are saying, just this week, I've read about 4 posts from people who have, 1,000+ followers in a fitness context, from people who wouldn't know otherwise, saying that metabolic damage doesn't exist. You're not going to have these things screwing up.
Yep.
It's only if you're on 600 calories a day and doing 4 hours of cardio. And I mean, the truth, it couldn't be further from that. It's contextual.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest thing with education and upskilling and, showing people is that it's contextual. It doesn't matter if you're only on 600 calories a day and doing 4 hours of cardio. I mean, like that, for the majority of people, is going to screw them up. I don't know anyone but that's not going to screw up. And you get the naysayers saying, oh, but then they're binging and then it balances out and all this kind of stuff. And I don't want to get into that, side of the context.
Yeah.
But all I'm going to suggest is that based on the data that we've seen on certain metabolic studies through like the Matador trials and stuff that have happened and are still happening, some of the stuff on replenishing chronic muscle glycogen depletion, like it can take up to 6 months for certain athletes to recover the glycogen stores that have been depleted from overtraining. It's taken a while for, metabolic rate to come back. At our facility, we've got a medical grade MedGem resting metabolic rate device that's like a DEXA scan for you, sort of like a DEXA scan for your metabolism.
Yeah.
It's this respirating machine. You breathe on it, it tells you what your resting metabolic rate is. So you can see how quickly you're adapting to if you're in a deficit through, or if you're in a surplus, and how the body is responding. And assess these things. And Haley, who specialises in this stuff, has seen a plethora of cases of metabolic suppression or relative energy deficit syndrome in sport, where certain female clients, they're on 1,600 calories and they're training 6 days a week for 90 minutes a day.
Yeah.
But for them, they're doing things like not measuring heart rate output, and they're working off an RPE that's unmeasured, and they think they're going 8 out of 10 and they're going 10 out of 10. They're at sub-maximal heart rates or maximal heart rates for the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So that intake of calories just isn't enough, but they're being compliant. And things are happening like, amenorrhea and, loss of menses and all that kind of stuff. And it shouldn't be happening at the body fats that these, subjects and girls that are coming in are experiencing, at 30% and 25% body fat and stuff. So they're displaying the symptoms of these conditions. And then when referred for further blood work and all that kind of stuff, it's then being shown that, hormones are out of whack and all this kind of stuff. Now, it isn't necessarily the hormone's fault. It's more a result of the long-term environment, and being placed in that environment.
Yeah.
And, things of that nature. So it's pretty funny, everyone's an expert, but no one's really formally educated in this stuff.
Yeah.
And the majority of the actual experts, if you watch them, they never like to really confirm anything. They confirm data, and they'll have their opinions and say, hey, I'm really opinionated in this, but they'll preface it. I would be very careful before saying, hey, this is my opinion and this is law and this is religion with all this stuff. If anyone's following people like that, I wouldn't personally, I'd take a grain of salt with it, or I would stop following it and start following the people who start privileging the data in an applied manner that can be contextually relevant and help you understand what context that can be applied in effectively. You know?
The main thing I recommend is always, if people use words like always and never, then they're probably not the best person to talk to about nutrition, because it always depends on that context and the specificity of the individual, whether that's going to be relevant to them. And there's no kind of one-size-fits-all approach based on nutrition, training, whatever it is that you're focusing on. So if we have people that we follow on social media and people that we're learning from that always start things like, in this context, or they start with it depends on this person's requirements, but just basically prefacing saying this is kind of how this is going to relate to this person, and if it's a completely different person, then it's going to be a completely different strategy or outcome that these people are working towards. Would you agree with that?
Oh, mate, 100%. You know, and it's crazy. You know, like I had it was funny, like an interaction where some like a trainer was saying, attributing a weekend of drinking to his client's body composition, like his poor body composition results over like a 9-month period from one weekend of drinking, and saying it was directly from that because we measure everything, you know, like following a really super evidence-based approach. And I was like, there's so many things in a 9-month window that can affect, I guess, decline in optimal body composition or an increase in body fat and drop in lean muscle mass, as the context was saying. You know, things like program design, were they undertraining, were they overtraining, adherence to the program, adherence to the nutritional program, all these kind of things. But they had the audacity to say, it is definitely alcohol because we measured the alcohol and this is what happened as a result. And it's just like, it's crazy, you know, like it's not like that at all. You know, like with alcohol, we know it's not super optimal and healthy for certain people, for people to be having it on a regular basis in copious amounts. You know, it's detrimental to body composition. But there's studies of like rugby players and football players drinking alcohol post match and having positive effects. You know, the same way that there's studies saying that alcohol for training is like has the same effect as, I think someone put it as like chemotherapy or something like that. You know, there's both extremes. So until there's a definitive view, or, you know, a definitive point where the, you know, data is falling, then we can't be making these statements, you know, you can't, especially over a 9-month period with a client when there's so many other variables that affect it. And I guess, like, for anyone listening, it's really important to note, and this is one of the things we go through in the course, is that when you look at any study, say it's the most confirmed study, you know, there's always, on average, a 30% placebo effect with people, and there's always, on average, it seems to be like a 30% non-responder rate. Okay, so at the best case scenario, you're going to have 70% of people respond in a positive manner to something or a negative manner to something to confirm it, and then there's placebo on top of that. So, you know, like when we get to it, nothing's really perfect, and that's looking at mean data. Okay, so like this is one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the last annual conference was like mean data versus personalized and individual data. And when we look at things like a study on caffeine, for instance, the mean data says yes, the substance increases performance, but when you look at the individual data, it's all over the place. And you know what I guess what the presenter was alluding to was that it was directly related to that specific gene they were assessing, you know, for that, and that was the factor that was influencing the response of caffeine on the individuals. But you know, like, it's just really important to know that, like, with all data, if someone's presenting a study and they're like, hey, these are the findings and stuff, you can pick the study to death and say, what were the controls? You know, how were the subjects supervised and all this kind of stuff. And then you can pick that to death. But like, if you just chunk it up a level to a more objective level and just always, you know, remember that, well, not always, because that's not a good thing, but like, just keep in mind that it's never, it's always, mate, you're tripping me out here.
Yeah.
And just keep in mind that studies always present with that degree of error. You know, there's always that degree of error. At this stage, anyway, that's what we've noted. You know, it's just so interesting. You know.
Yeah. In terms of, like, I guess if someone was to become MHS qualified, what does that mean for them and any potential client that they take on? What's the process they have to go through with the client? And if they have a client that is at risk, how do they determine that? And then what's the process from there?
Okay, cool. So, I mean, like, once they get qualified and then they register with us, we submit them for their insurance. So that way the insurance companies know we're backing them effectively. And then from there, we and once they're insured, basically every client they see just has to be screened, and they get access to this web-based program, which is like a client management system that has the screen built into it. So every client that gets added then has the screen filled in, and then they're assessed. You know, are they low risk? Are they moderate risk? Which is still working within a sports nutritionist scope. but it's some areas that they know that, okay, in that initial consultation, these are some flags that we're going to have to work on in the next couple of weeks. So it's something that really, I guess, helps the sports nutritionist and coach sell their services to the client, and say, like, here's some flags, but it's not super bad that you have to go up to a medical professional. And then when they're high risk, then it's an instant referral. And then the allied health practitioner and specialist will then clear them, and then they're all good to go from there.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the process for everyone. So everyone gets access to that. We created that platform to uphold and look after everyone in terms of where the insurance is currently at with the professional indemnity cover. And all like Metabolic Health and certified and insured coaches and sports nutritionists are actually have a level of medical malpractice cover as well, because there is that medical component to it in terms of the screen. So I should just probably pop that in there. No one else has that. So in order to be doing this stuff, you need to have a level of malpractice cover as well as professional indemnity. And basically all the data for those clients then gets stored for the next 5 years. So that way, in the event where a case were to pop up where someone were to make a claim, we can always show that based on the current governing insurance law at the time, everyone was operating within scope and everyone was covered. So that way it's not something that they turn around and say, hey, you were outside of scope, you're in trouble, we're going to pursue you beyond this. It's created in a way where it's always follows scope of practice at that point in time, and then has the backup for the next 5 years for that PI and malpractice time frame to come back and potentially affect someone as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So if someone gets a client and they are high risk, what happens then? What's the process? Obviously, you can't necessarily work with them, so what do you do with that client?
So you would basically get flagged in the system. Hales, at the moment, would be the one to get in contact with them and just see what the high risk condition was. First and foremost, it might be something as simple as they've got a heart condition, pre-existing heart condition. They're currently working with a GP and dietitian. So all that needs to happen is that the coach gets in contact with the person at that point. But Haley or another metabolic health representative in the allied health department will then get in contact and coach them through that, and then organise that referral and clearance from there. So they'll get you to touch base with the person, have the contact details put in, and then it's all sorted. They'll just get like a letter of clearance, like an email back from the person that gets uploaded in the system as well. If it's something where they don't have an existing person they're working with, then we'll arrange that for them.
Yeah.
And that'll be with one of the people in our allied health network. And if people we're fortunate enough to have it be able to be done through an online capacity as well. So if people are like limited in where they what they have available to them within a certain area or geographical positioning, then we can take care of that for them in an online means as well, and do like online consultations and clearances from there. And then the same thing would happen. They clear them, send the clearance through, it'd be recorded, and then they would be working with the said allied health person on a basis recommended by the specialist at that point. Again, so the client might see, if it were a diabetes client and say it's a type 1, they may see a dietitian or doctor, on a quarterly frequency, in which case, every month or something like that, the coach would send a report through, this is how we're going. The specialist would say, these are the areas that I want you to focus on in the next quarter. The coach would send, a monthly report or review through just to keep them posted as they're going. It can just be done via email or anything like that, just to make sure that things are progressing nicely. If something does pop up, then, the specialist is aware then as well. And then after that next quarter, then the specialist will send back the recommendations and focuses, for the next quarter. And that's like someone with, say type 1 diabetes. It was like a recent type 1 and they didn't know and they required more assistance. That's where an increased frequency would be. Or say it was someone who's didn't know what was going on, but they had some flags and they weren't too sure, were referred off for blood work and some testing, came back with, a condition like endometriosis or anything like that, then they may require a little bit more increased frequency with the specialist initially, just to be educated around this stuff. And in which case the coach would be kept in the loop the whole time, but be kind of sitting there and waiting for the education, on that. Like there's in terms of just like endometriosis, PCOS, and those types of conditions. There's so many ways to treat them, and there's so many ways that it affects the body. So there's insulin resistance, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and there's like heavily androgenic ones that affect women in completely different ways. So it's not like a one size fits all approach with those things as well. Any specialist that has experience in dealing with these things, and I know I've seen some gurus online who are, like, I don't know, they're a coach, but they're like, it's this hormone and you've got to do this. Like, the moments that people start talking about hormones, like, and they're a PT or a coach level and it's not their area of expertise and they don't have a doctorate on it with the medical malpractice insurance to back it and stuff, it's never a good idea to listen to them about trying to manipulate that hormone, because they just don't have the years of expertise in that practical clinic setting to be able to really like see it in the plethora of cases and how it can affect people. Doing something effectively 10 times doesn't mean you're an expert at all. But like that's one that I see pop up all the time, is like PCOS and like how to fix it and all this kind of stuff. And it's just so hard. I guess what I've seen, what I've been told by the actual experts.
Yeah, totally agree. So basically it just means that like anything that's too complex for you to be able to understand with your knowledge that you have as a trainer based on doing the NHS, you just work with another allied health professional to be able to walk the client through the process. Would that be right? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, you've been doing this for a while, mate. Like, you've been covered. You went through the first certification that we did.
Yeah.
And have experienced like very rigid meal plan based body composition preparation versus like having flexible evidence based approaches. And I guess the difference in that and stuff as well. So you've experienced it firsthand, and like you know what it's like, and you've always been an advocate of working with allied health specialists in whatever field, not just nutrition. When a client presents with a certain condition, And I would recommend that to all coaches anyway. If it's movement injuries, whatever it is, like, there'll be a specialist for a certain thing, and learn how to screen and learn how to start referring and working with other professionals for those most optimal outcomes, because then you'll have a client for life, not just for a 12-week period or something like that.
Yeah, definitely agree. What I find is with most trainers, they don't necessarily want to refer on to someone because they think that it just means that the client knows that they can't get them the result, when it's actually the other way around. You understand what you're limited in actually being able to do and get someone an outcome. If you're the person who connects that person to someone who can fix just one link in the chain, whether it's movement-based through a physio or exercise physiologist or through nutrition, it just means that they're more likely to be able to stay with you longer because you're the one that goes, well, yeah, this is what I can do, but this person's going to get this last little bit out of it to be able to increase the results, and then it just increases client retention for a longer period. And as you said, you get a client for life then. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's just one of these things. It's crazy to me because it always came naturally, to just refer, but like just having that self-awareness and not having that ego in the process to be able to step away and say, I'm not the expert at this stuff. I know someone who is. We're going to work with them, in conjunction with doing these things that we do know, but we're going to, get them to take care of all this other grey area that hasn't been defined. And I still don't know about and have that. I by no means am as good at Haley in terms of body composition and metabolism, and Cam is amazing at chronic disease and epigenetics and stuff. That's why we have these specialists in those fields, so that way when someone does present with chronic disease issues, they can be treated, by him. And when someone's specifically metabolic with performance body comp based with something going on with metabolism and stuff, they go to her for that reason. This is an egoless process, and very much needs to be to have the effect within the industry within Australia that we want to be having.
Yeah, awesome, totally agree. In terms of, I guess, where the industry is heading, so a lot of trainers are starting to do online training. They're working with clients, not necessarily in person, just online, whether it's doing mentoring or coaching online, whatever you want to call it. Can they use this system to be able to do that? And also, where do you kind of see that going within the fitness industry?
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's definitely heading in that direction. If not, it's already there. It's a bit of a circus out there. You've got people saying, like, have my ultimate, ripped and 60-day program for $20 a month or something like that. And then you've got people who are treating it like a proper professional service and affording a certain amount of legitimate time per week to personalize it for every client and do stuff. I know that, I know that you do that specifically, and it's an effective means of reaching people and helping people you wouldn't otherwise be able to help, provided that you're affording the time like you are. I just wish, other coaches out there who are like social media gurus, or they may not even be coaches, that's what social media platforms have enabled people to do. It's like, hey, you might just be genetically blessed with, an 8-pack and, pecs and carbs or something like that. And all of a sudden, follow me to know how I've done it. You haven't necessarily helped thousands of people achieve that in a way that is undeniable. But, in terms of, I guess, where it's going, it'll eventually get to a point, I'd like to think so, that the charlatans and kind of pseudo dodgy people out there that do those types of programs, and it's just that cookie cutter approach, get caught out, and things like, there'll be like a Yelp type system or like a review type system where, someone specializes in this area and they're reviewed for it. So you can search for it and then see the reviews on that person. That's definitely somewhere it'll eventually go. How long that'll take, I don't know. But something like screening, referring, personalizing, applying an evidence-based approach, working with other professionals in that field is only going to help you get a better review. That's all the what that's involved taking care of in client care and service provision. The rest is a why. How do you connect with them? So what about their goals is important to them, and connecting with them. That's a whole another area. And I won't touch any further on that, but it'll basically take care of the what in sports nutrition and body composition. And then the program also has like an exercise programming function to it, and it also has like a check-in function to it as well. So what that enables you to do is look at the exercises they're logging, their total volume, their output, the progression over that. It's got assessment functions as well to store their body composition assessments. You can have like manually input from DEXs, or you can do they can do self-girths. You can do girths that you can log. You can log skin folds in there. It'll have all the data collection. And then it'll also then store their resting metabolic rate and total daily energy expenditure assessment stuff as well. So there's the Harris-Benedict approximation methods, as well as the precise device measured stuff from the MedGem in conjunction with Haley's, MedGem consults as well, to then manually input and then track how they're going. So it's the only system that'll be able to basically graph and map over time how their body composition is tracking, how their training output's tracking and performance is tracking, and how their metabolism's tracking over a graph, and then store all that information. We're doing this with a company that basically specializes with this. So this is with a company called Max Kelsen. They do stuff and data and analytics for like Virgin and GoPro and all this kind of stuff, and this is their thing. So while spreadsheets are great, they're very tedious. And the moment you learn one thing new, you've got to update it across every spreadsheet. And I just got so sick of that stuff years ago. And then actually started building this system to be able to just use in-house for my guys. And then when the insurers came back and said, hang on, we want something that's going to be able to back up for the clients and the coach's history and what they're doing from a recommendation and programming prescription standpoint, then I just applied to that. And then it just became an added inclusion to anyone who went through the course and completed the certifications and registered. It was just an included bonus, So that's the only, I guess, clause in our whole thing is every client has to be entered, everyone has to be screened. That's it. You register, just make sure you do that. And that way you're covered, you're always protected, because we don't want to put our name to anything where people are going to half-ass the process and then, compromise themselves and their professional integrity, and then also our brand with it, when we want to have such significant change in the industry on a national scale.
Cool. So I guess what's the big goal then? I guess you said you want to have 20,000 fitness professionals qualified in the system. What's the goal behind that? Why do you want to achieve that? Why do you want to get that many people?
I mean, like we want to. Let me be clear. Like we would like to have the whole 70,000, and it's growing by about 5 to 10% every year because everyone wants to be a trainer. It's a really romantic ideology of what it is to be a coach and trainer. You're always in shape. You work in gyms. You help people. It's really awesome. It's a pretty cool romantic sentiment. The reality is sometimes a bit daunting for people, and ultimately it's a bit of a transit industry. I know that you help people with this stuff, and are well aware that 90% of people fail within the first 9 months, with this stuff, and that's kind of what you work on in your personal time and have a bit of passion for helping people as well. And so we came to 20,000 and 20,000 plus, like around that mark, by saying if we could have the best quarter, the best 25%. So if it's growing at that rate, if we could have the best quarter or a fifth of the industry, so the authority figures and the leading coaches in the industry, the ones who have been here for the last 5 years plus or 2 years plus, and they're having a really good impact, and they've got a head on their shoulders, and they understand that they don't know everything and they don't know how to apply everything, and they need to be covered in order to be able to look after their clients. Like, you can't be like, oh, I'm all about my clients, and in one breath, and then in the same breath be like, I'm not going to get covered in the service that I'm providing them, and then if they get screwed up, not be able to look after them, and then it's my ass and my reputation. Because what some people have done is not even done their certs, certain trainers, and involved with certain organizations, and not even had that injured people because they haven't pre-movement screened to assess if like, for instance, the deadlift is suitable. Some people, it's not suitable at a certain time, for them. Hurt them, got them to slip discs. They've then been sued because the client sues for damages because they've been hurt as a result of that, assuming that the coach and trainer has insurance to cover it, so it'll be all good. The person wasn't covered or insured and then declares bankruptcy and moves, 2 states away and then opens up again and starts doing it. So, you can't be all for your clients and then not be covered in the event where something goes wrong. These are the things that are going to happen. Like, things are going to go wrong. Clients aren't always going to be compliant. They're not always an adherent. They're not always going to tell you everything. Insurance is there to insure you for the worst case scenario and to be able to also look after them. So, we want to have the best 25% or 20% in the industry who understand and respect that, want to upskill, want to constantly be plugged into the information as it's coming through, and position standards are changing, and there's new and better techniques to be there, and we will funnel that information to them and provide them the support they need to be the very best coaches they can be for their clients. It's something that I've been passionate about for years. Like, I've got my facilities that I'm like our motto is be your best. And, I believe, wholeheartedly that, the model and how we run it is an answer to and solution to the fitness industry at the moment, in terms of how to have career coaches and look after them, have the best client outcomes, and have people working off a mutual system, supporting each other and all that kind of stuff. But that's not going to have the immediate short-term impact that something like this will. And this is, a bigger, more relevant short-term problem at this point in time than what we do at Enhance HQ. That's awesome, and I love that. But this is more, short-term relevant and contextually severe than what the stuff that we're addressing there is.
Yeah. Definitely think it'll be much more impactful as well, obviously. If you can change the majority of the industry to having that skill set, it's just going to mean that everyone in the industry is going to be at a higher standard, and that's kind of one of the things that I'm always working with the trainers that I work with, is always trying to raise that standard within the fitness industry, so that basically we can weed out any of those people who aren't necessarily doing the right things with their clients, and have those people who are interested in staying in the industry long term and actually making a career out of it, and actually having an impact on other people, and making the fitness industry basically that potential to be able to solve a lot of the world's health issues, rather than just being a vanity-based industry, which it currently is at the moment, and then all those people coming in and not giving the level of service that they should to their clients. So it's really awesome what you're doing there, and it's definitely why I got you on here as well. And add to that with having the use of this system has just basically been awesome for my business, in terms of working with the clients that I've actually had, and working with a lot of people online working towards their comp prep goals, or just working towards health goals, and then applying everything that I've learned and using the systems to be able to basically improve my entire skill set and make myself an even better trainer, so that I can flow on to basically lead a better example within the fitness industry. So it's a really powerful course for people to be able to do and actually improve their skill set and actually make a bigger difference on the fitness industry, which is why most people get into the fitness industry. In terms of, I guess, courses and stuff. So it's predominantly run in person, but it's also running online now. Is that right?
Yeah. We put an online component because we've had that many inquiries through Sydney and Melbourne, like Western Australia and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of just kind of getting out there. So we've basically set it up in a way where we can provide it online. And the only thing that is required at this stage in the next, I guess, 6 months is that the people from out of state need to just fly in for the exam date, and then we can fully support them throughout the whole process. So it's just come in for the exam, knock out the exam, and then they're fully taken care of from there. So whereas, in 6 months' time, what we'll be able to do is be able to offer the exams in the other capital cities in the other states and be able to facilitate it that way. So we're just working on a couple of infrastructural things at the moment in terms of how to best roll that out for the other capital cities. And that's why we're keeping it here at the moment, because obviously, we've been doing this for a while in Brisbane and in Queensland. So it's just, our bread and butter at the moment and makes it a lot easier. But we've got people like yourself and some of the other ambassadors who are like able to present and stuff as well, and expanding our presenter network as well. So it's going to help us reach a lot more people. And it's we make no guarantees about it. This isn't something that's going to happen without people coming together and pushing for that change and being pulled in that direction. It's not something I'm going to be able to do on my own. It's something. It's a collaborative effect from people mutually sharing these values of wanting to improve the industry. And like I said, it's an ego-less thing. This isn't something where it's like, oh, look what I've been able to do. It's like, look what we've been able to do to the industry as a whole. We've, flagged this many conditions who otherwise would have received chicken, broccoli and rice or sweet potato with no sauce, and have your thermogenics in the morning and do this cardio at this time or some crap like that. Screw them up through that way, or be able to stick to it and it kind of, sort of hit the mark with the caloric intake that they should be having based on their output, but then create all these eating disorders down the track because their relationship with food's gone funny and all this kind of stuff. There's so many considerations with this stuff. So it's just a push. It's just a massive collaborative push in the right direction to just be able to give the clients the best that they deserve in the safest way possible. Yeah,
awesome. In terms of the course, so there's a couple of courses coming up, and I understand that you're willing to give a discount to the people who are listening to this and some of the groups that I manage as well, based on them getting in and actually upskilling themselves. Is that right?
Yep, definitely. So what we've got is we've got them kicking off in late October for the Brisbane and Gold Coast, and what we've got is for the ambassadors. So it's like yourself and a couple other guys and girls who have gone a part of the program at the moment, and represent Metabolic Health and its values really, really well. We've got an ambassador referral discount. So people that you guys know who share these values and want to be a part of it and want to upskill through this, we offer just $200 off the course. There's payment plans available for this stuff as well. We'll provide links for this that I guess we can use a little bit later or something like that.
Yep.
For the registrations and stuff. So the next ones are kicking off in the last week of October, and that'll be the last two courses. So we've got a Brisbane course and a Gold Coast course. And obviously there's the online component available as well. So they'll kick off. They'll be our last courses for the year, and then we're going to kick off again in February. Okay, so we're going to have a bit of time off, run a couple more, and then that's when we'll look to aggressively scale nationally from there, having the exams and workshops actually in the other capital cities and going pretty hard. So 2017 is going to be a pretty big year.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, thanks for your time today, Alex. Really appreciate you giving up your time, and always love talking to people who are actually have that passion for upskilling other trainers in the fitness industry and raising those standards. So thanks for coming on.
My pleasure, man. All the best, okay? Thanks, Cody. Keep killing it.
Thank you for listening to Chasing Gains Radio. Be sure to use the Chasing Gains Radio hashtag on all social media. If you have any questions, queries, or comments about the podcast, use this hashtag. Thanks again for listening to Chasing Gains Radio. Be sure to share and like this podcast to help spread the Chasing Gains movement.